podcast. I'm Kyle, joined by my brother Keenan, joined by Kamden Dennis. Kamden, what's good? Keenan, how you doing?
I'm great.
We got a loaded basketball podcast today. Plenty of questions, plenty of topics. Keenan, you had a question to start. I know you're you're over there chewing on some sweet tart chews. You said before we got on. Shouts to sweet tarts. Shouts to Willy Wonka. All that.
Absolutely.
You said you had a question.
Nope, not a featured podcast, so it's okay.
Yeah, right. We might have to censor that. We might have to censor that when we put this shit through.
I would say we might have to. Yeah, Kyle alluded to a little bit there. The question that I have coming in. So for the class that I'm doing right now, I'm gonna give a little backstory. For the class that I'm doing now, it's a personal branding class. And for that class, we're starting to build like our portfolio. So when we graduate, we're able to show different people, say like someone that's working for like Fox Sports or something, like, hey, hiring manager, here's my portfolio. I've done X, I've done Y, I've done all that stuff. And so with that, I actually had to write a blog. And in writing that blog, I had to pick a topic, and I was interested to see what your guys' opinion on this is. What do you think the best NBA player rivalry of all time is?
Ooh.
I mean,
Kyle, you go if you want, or Kamden, either way.
Man, this is great. I love this question because my mind has two things. I'm like, who do I think the actual best one is? And then, on top of that, who do I think is the best I've seen? Because I think the best one, player rivalry, is Celtics-Lakers, Bird, Magic. That's the one that comes right off the top of my head.
Of course, yeah.
They saved the league. They did all that. I've watched highlights of those games. I've heard about it. Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
But when I think rivalry, when I think that type of stuff, I'm going with my man, Braun.
Of course.
I got to go Braun.
Of course.
You know, I love Braun. And it's just such a focal point in my life. It's that Braun v. Steph combo right
of
there.
Course.
It's that so many finals up against each other, so much greatness happening with it. It's that scoring factor of Steph coming in, who's got it. I love it. I love it. So I think the best one to me is personally Braun versus Steph. I love that Braun versus Steph stuff. So that's mine.
Okay, Kyle, what do you say?
Before I answer, Keenan, I'm interested what you chose for your class. What'd you choose?
So I wrote it. I kind of midway through writing it, I think it's like a very strong debate because I took it from 3 points. I only had 500 to 700 words to do it. I went a little over. I actually had Steph and LeBron, and then I had Magic and Larry Bird as like, because obviously I had to put contemporary points. So I put Magic and Bird, and then I also had Russell and Wilt. And so I kind of I broke down like their stats, a little bit of their stats because I couldn't really go too in depth. It could have been literally a 5,000 word piece if I wanted to make it that. And so I broke down a little bit of like the high points, their playoff bouts, and like going back and forth there, and then kind of compared like each of the duos and rivalries, and that's kind of what I came up with. I don't have any problem with someone saying Bird and Magic. I don't have anyone having a problem saying Wilt and Russell, and I have no problem with someone that said LeBron and Steph. I really don't. I don't mind it. What do you say, Kyle?
It's funny because we kind of mentioned this a couple weeks ago with like LeBron's rivals, how it like started with Carmelo. Which, by the way, congrats on a career to Carmelo Anthony, one of my all-time favorite basketball players.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll even talk about that more in depth later.
Yep.
But LeBron and Steph, right? So it went from Melo to Durant, and then it became Steph. It's kind of convoluted to me just because of how much talent each had on their team and how it kind of came and went. You know what I mean? Like I see a lot of players like saying, or I've seen people say like the last couple of weeks, how it's kind of ended after this last semifinals, which I don't necessarily believe that. But it's been pretty quick, right? Like 2015 to, I guess now, so like the last 8 years. Whereas to me, my answer, let me just get it right away, would be Bird and Magic, because we're still talking about it, 40 years later. Like, the first one I thought of, Kamden said it's one of the first he thought of. And Keenan, you had it in yours as well.
Of course, yeah.
And then, for the modern day, obviously LeBron and Steph. A few others come to mind, like Kyrie Irving versus himself. And if we want very, very recent history, I would say Ja Morant versus IG Live. That would be one for me as well.
Zion versus injury.
Paul. Yeah.
Zion versus injury. Kyrie, I already said Kyrie. Chris Paul versus other players' nuts. He seems to like to, get a little love tap in between screens. And Draymond versus other players' bodies, because he's just.
I was going to say Draymond versus the refs. Fair enough, but I mean, other players' bodies works too. I was going to say, because Draymond versus the refs is crazy.
Another one, Meta World Peace, a.k.a. Panda Friend, a.k.a. Ron Artest, versus whatever fan that was in Detroit. So
or James Harden's face.
Yeah.
Yo, I always forget about that one until I see it. That's an underrated one. That's underrated.
Or James Harden's face, absolutely.
Yeah.
Poor James. Yeah, he's lucky he didn't die. Like, if we're being honest here.
Let me put two. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go on, Cam.
Yeah. I got two more that just popped up into my head.
Yep.
I would say I've always loved a good game with Russell Westbrook and Pat Beverly. Those games never disappoint. Those games never disappoint.
Yeah.
They be fighting, headbutting. And then secondly, I'm just thinking back to the day and a good old Tim Duncan versus Kevin Garnett game as a Celtics fan. Those were always just an awesome battle. Awesome Bigs battles. So those are two more that came to my head.
I'm not mad at that, too, because obviously they played against each other in the West. Michael and Isaiah, obviously, that one comes up, too. So
Let me give you a couple, just because Cam just kind of maybe recollects some, but like positional ones like that. Steph and Chris Paul's a good one. I would say Steph and Westbrook's another one. KD and Westbrook, low key. I said it earlier in a reference that it kind of passed, but it's true. They had fun matchups during their career. Is LeBron and Melo? They had great matchups. LeBron and Durant.
Kobe Wade was cool.
Kobe, Dwayne Wade, Kobe T-Mac.
Yeah.
Kobe T-Mac for a time was must-see
LeBron
TV.
Durant, yeah.
And LeBron cool.
Yes, it was.
You know what I mean? There's all these matchups that we kind of came in and out. LeBron, Paul
Hakeem
Pierce.
in every center in the 90s.
Yeah, you get Hakeem David Robinson for sure.
Yeah,
Hakeem Shaq maybe for a time. Yeah, and he said KG and Tim. I mean, you could insert Dirk versus any one of those power forwards during that era. Whether it's KG versus Dirk. Definitely Dirk versus Tim, though. Them both being in Texas, they had a lot of matchups. That's actually an underrated one as well. So there's a lot that, if you really want to dive into it. But I think the granddaddy of them all, as they say, would be Magic versus Bird, because we're still talking about it. They face each other so much. Their styles were so similar. I can save this for another day, but I've seen some clips lately of Larry Bird that just, like, make me laugh. Like, just how cocky he was in the court. Like, it's one thing to see highlights. It's one thing to see game clips of Larry Bird, like how he was in game. I'll save that for another time, maybe off cam. But that's a great question. That's a really great question, because there is a lot of positional ones.
Yes, there's a lot of positional ones, and kind of just to go briefly into it before we move on to our first topic. The thing I kind of broke down in it was with LeBron and Steph in the playoffs. They've played 29 games against each other. Steph's 17-12. Magic in the playoffs with Bird only actually played 19. They're 11-8 because obviously they only could match up in the finals. Same with Bron and Steph until this year, but they matched up in 4 comparatively to Magic's 3. I know Magic and Bird are 2 and Magic's 2-1 against him. Steph's 3-2 now against him. So it was kind of going back and forth too. With I compared all NBA teams to Bird was great. Bird had like 9 straight all NBA first teams, like just from his rookie year on. Like it was literally going through it. It was absolutely crazy. And obviously, and then Russell and Wilt too, because they did have all NBA first and second team. Then obviously they were 1 and 2 every single year, but Bill got a lot of second teams just because of how dominant Wilt was. And then in playoff series, what I leaned away from Wilt and Russell was only because Russell was 29-20 against Wilt, but he was 7-1 in series, so he really never lost to Wilt. So That was kind of like the rivalry aspect was more one-sided rather than anything. But all great rivalries. Obviously, if you say Magic and Bird, as I've said, no problem. But my point in the blog was for LeBron and Steph.
The other point I'd have with
whatever.
Last point I'd make about those two rivalries, Russell and Wilt and Magic and Bird, that both of them have that right now LeBron and Curry do not, is all four of them as the individual rivalry, Russell and Wilt and Bird and Magic, they were each such great friends after their career. Like Bird and Wilt were notoriously close. They had a bitter rivalry at one point, but they became very close at the end of, or after their careers. And of course, Bird and Magic, you can't even like speak one without the other, which I think is the case too with Russell and Wilt. I don't know if that's exactly the case for LeBron and Curry. I think it's starting to become the case, especially with the 2010s and forward. But I don't think. I think it'll get there. It's different, but not in the way of Bird and Magic, where like the next fucking name out the sentence, you might get Bird before Kareem even, or Pat Riley. But yeah, you definitely hear Steph's name. I think it's going to be more of a conversation. We've had this talk, Keenan, on here before, plenty. Yeah. That as time goes on, that is going to be more of a conversation, Steph and LeBron, and however it's shaped, because there is still time here. But let's move on to topics because I know we got a lot.
And speaking of LeBron,
start time.
We can. I know you obviously the Celtics heat are still going on, but speaking of LeBron, to get this one here. Speaking of LeBron, obviously the Nuggets swept the Lakers. Pretty close games throughout for most of them, and the Nuggets showed to be the best team in the West all year, and they proved it in the playoffs, not going more than 6 games. LeBron in Game 4 went 40, 10, and 9, had 21 in the first quarter. He was putting on a clinic, doing what LeBron does, what he can still do, which is crazy. And he fell a little short. Anthony Davis was all up and down during that game. But what were your guys' thoughts on that? And then if you guys also want to touch on the LeBron possible retirement kind of thing too.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Whatever you guys want to go into on that, you talk there. But I'll let you guys have the floor. I started it here.
For
Kim,
sure.
go ahead. Go ahead, Kim.
Man, my favorite player, LeBron. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
LeBron, the dude played what he could do. 31 in the first half, I think.
Yep.
Doing what he can do. And I heard a lot, and I think I agree with this. As a whole team, that was probably his best supporting cast as a whole he's ever had, with just so many good players. I know. Okay, we can talk about this. I think it was. I do.
I do like the supporting cast. I'll say that.
He disagrees.
We can talk. I like the supporting cast too, but I think the 66-16 Heat might have something to say about it, or the 3-1 down against the Warriors Cavs might have something to say. But you know what? We can go off. We can talk.
You're disrespecting the great J.R. Smith right now. That's all I'm going to say.
Or the great Daniel Boobie Gibson in the 07 Cavs.
You're disrespecting the great Matthew Dellavedova. You're disrespecting right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but no, you can go on. We can have that's a conversation itself that will definitely be had because I've got to speak on that. We'll go on.
But the dude is great. He's just performing at the highest level still. Yeah. He went out and said that he believes that he's still better than 90 and 95% of the players in the league.
He's not wrong.
I agree with that. I agree with that. He's out there. And whether he plays with the Lakers or goes somewhere else through trade or whatever that is, my biggest aspiration is to see him and Bronny play somewhere. I need to see that. I need that to happen. That'll be greatness. That series, it's a bummer that team that they couldn't get one game, but also I think LeBron said this as well. This is the best team in the playoffs that his Lakers has faced all year, and
I agree.
This Nuggets team is one of the best teams I've seen in a long time in the playoffs. They are phenomenal. They can score in a lot of ways. Jokic is playing at the highest level. They got shooters all over that team, and their defense is working really, really well, and they're just offensively out there. So, tough battle.
If you exclude the Warriors, because obviously they had the Durant years, and then obviously how great the franchise has been, if you exclude the Warriors, it's really them since 2013, if you want to say it's them, the Spurs, and then the Suns team a couple years ago. But there's been not too many. So they're probably one of at least the top 4 of the last decade.
Put some respect on the 2018 Celtics names.
A team like that at
I just mean the West. Sorry, I just meant the West.
Gotcha.
Yes, I agree.
But yeah, 2018. The Celtics had some teams.
Yeah, but losing in that sort of way in the West at such a late time in your legacy and career, that's okay. That's okay. And it's a bummer that AD didn't show up the way that LeBron needed him to. Even with LeBron, like in that game, putting up 40. I just wish I saw some of that. But tipping my hat off to Jokic, dude. I was wrong about that, man. I was like, he's number 5 in my MVP list. He's
better than Mark Jackson. Better than Mark Jackson.
It's true. I did better than Mark Jackson. But I can't say enough about that dude. He's crazy. He's crazy. So they're a blast to watch. Love my boy Bron. He'll be back. He'll be back, no doubt. I'm feeling that he'll be back.
And Kyle, what do you think?
If we're keeping this strictly on a LeBron topic, I agree with much of what Kamden said, especially regarding Game 4, where LeBron came out 31 in the first half, most he's ever had in the first half of any playoff game. If AD gives them a little more, they should come away with that game. They had 5 fouls on Jokic. I don't know if y'all remember this, but literally right after he picks up his 5th, he fouls Anthony Davis on a dunk, and they didn't call it. Like, he very well could have fouled out with a few minutes left in the game, and they never do get him out.
Yeah.
But much like Cam said, man, it just shows you how impressive this Nuggets team is. I never in a million years would have guessed it was going to be a sweep. If you told me 5 games, sure, I would have landed at 6, and I think that is what I picked was 6 games, but, with a possibility of 5, right? Because I do think the Nuggets are damn near impossible to stop on offense. But I thought the Lakers showed incredible defense, especially LeBron off the ball. I thought LeBron was incredible off the ball defensively in this series.
Yes.
I do think LeBron was playing at about a B+ this entire playoffs. I thought Game 4 was his best game of the entire playoffs. And AD was...
That or Game 6 of the Warriors series. Both of those are pretty good games. But I'd probably say this one was his best.
And Anthony Davis was phenomenal all playoffs as far as defense goes. He was pretty streaky offensively. D'Angelo Russell gave him nothing this series. I thought they should have ran through Austin Reeves a lot more this series. I thought he gets to wherever he wants on the floor. I think he's a smart player. I think he's going to get a lot of money this summer, assuming he goes back to LA too. But regardless of where he goes, he's going to get a lot of money.
He deserves it.
This really was a fascinating series because even though it was a 4-game sweep, it was competitive every step of the way, much like the Celtics and Nets of last year. Felt very much like that. I was actually rooting for the Lakers to win in Game 3 so we could at least get a Game 5.
And the Game 4 would have been even more. And the Game 4 would have been even more of a pivotal game. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Game 4 I should say I was rooting for them, but I mean, they had their opportunities. Game 1, they fought their way back, couldn't close the deal. Game 2, they're up. Nuggets fight their way back, they couldn't close the deal. So I mean, Game 2 was really the game they needed because once you're up 2-0, Denver's a team that's only going to get harder and harder as the series goes on. And on the Jokic side of things, man, I mean, obviously incredible in every facet of the game offensively. He makes every single play that's needed. And then on top of that, he's making ridiculous step backs against LA. So you guys will know what I'm talking about. That second step back that he had in Game 4, right? In the second half, y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
He's got it in his left hand. Correct? Did they switch that to a 3? What happened with that?
Actually remember.
I believe so.
And this was weird to me because his right foot...
I think they did.
His right foot's over the line. And as he's raising up, his right foot lifts up. But his foot the entire time was never behind the line. And I think they switched it to a 3. I think that's a very weird rule. I think that should have been a 2-pointer. That's different to me.
That is weird.
But because I thought they switched to a 3. I was kind of... I don't know why I didn't really catch it at the time. But anyway, I think Jokic was obviously phenomenal. Murray was phenomenal. And we could talk about the Nuggets
Yeah.
more if we get into a finals preview. I'm very impressed with Michael Porter Jr. and their bench, Bruce Brown, switching to a backup point guard role basically after, basically being a wing.
Almost being their
They just
center,
impressed me.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And they're just checking all the boxes. Like, they're so poised. They remind me a bit of, the Popovich Spurs, especially like the second iteration of them when they became more of a pick and roll team than a post team. They just share the ball so well. They're better defensively than anybody gave them credit for. Jokic is better defensively than anyone gives him credit for, much like Steph. He's like the center version of Steph on defense where people will,
Yes.
say you can go at him, but we've yet to see it. This playoffs where someone's exploited him over and over and over. I think he's a fairly smart defender. But shocking series. Like, again, I'm still shocked as we sit here that it was a 4-game sweep, that it wasn't at least 6 games, at least 5 games even. But,
Yep.
I mean, and, if we're going to talk about LeBron and his retirement, call out, I think that's complete bullshit. If Bron were to ever retire or was even considering retirement, he was asked, I don't know if you guys saw the press conference, but he was asked about the future and stuff like that. And he's like, I didn't even think about it, blah, blah, blah. And then 10 minutes after the press conference, I'm considering retirement. Okay, LeBron, like, are you really? Like, we all say here, does anyone actually think he's not going to be suiting up next year?
No,
Anybody?
here's the only thing I could. No, the only thing I could think
suiting
of would be maybe he's like next year is his last year, and like the Bronny thing doesn't fully happen because obviously, just because LeBron wants it to happen doesn't mean that Bronny wants it to happen. And I know,
Sure.
and like this year, LeBron, I know that's been his goal, but this year LeBron said that Bronny's his own man. That if he wants to do it, he wants to do it. And I personally don't think that should be on Bronny's radar whatsoever. It's a cool feat. If you get it, yeah, I played with my dad in an NBA game. That's never been done. It may never be done. Obviously, it could possibly be, but you don't know. But I don't want him to come out of USC early. Like right now, he's projected like the 24th prospect, and they've got some good prospects coming to USC, so you don't know what his minutes is going to look like, and you don't know how he's going to be. You don't know how he's going to play, and I would like to, if he needs another year, I don't think that's a bad thing to need another year and go into the league at 20, 21, comparatively to going in just at like 19 or 20. So I don't want him to rush it just to try to play with his dad and then be in a less favorable position moving forward throughout his career because of it. Because obviously once LeBron's gone, the incentive of, hey, like you get me is gone. So that's why I would like him to wait if he needs to. If he doesn't and he's great and he's a lottery pick out of next year, then cool. And if it works out, cool. But I wouldn't make that a priority. I'd make that just a plus if it comes to.
Sure.
I just want to say this about LeBron and the Lakers. You've heard me many times on this podcast, not so much criticize, but pick at some shit I heard LeBron say or do, and I'm like, man, he's annoying and he should be above that, this and that, this and that. Didn't really have much of that this season, honestly, with him. I was less annoyed by him, and I'm starting to try to appreciate him more because I do know there's, probably less than 4 years that we have him in the league. You know what I mean? So it was very cool to see
absolutely.
him and Steph this postseason match up again because, it very well could be the last time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And after the deadline, like I don't like how he treated Russ. I thought he was very much a bad teammate to Russ. That's another topic. But post the deadline, when they got all their new pieces, I actually liked watching the Lakers. Austin Reeves became one of my favorite players in the league this season. I've hated AD.
I am him.
Right. I've hated AD since he went to the Lakers because I thought how he handled getting out of New Orleans was whack. I thought his whole last season there, or half of the season after he requested the trade, and he was obviously trying to get to L.A., ends up in L.A., he was annoying to me. And I, once again, loved watching him play this year. And Rui, I became a Rui Hachimura fan this year, watching him play. He's got a lot to his game. And
he does.
So, I say that to say the Lakers and LeBron were much less annoying to me. And then, again, less than an hour after the game, LeBron just does what LeBron does, he just cannot handle being out of the limelight. Like, Jokic just swept him. Jokic very much cements himself as the best player in the world right now. And LeBron's like, yeah, I'm thinking about retiring. Like, are you, LeBron? Are you thinking about retiring? Like, if you were going to retire, you'd make the biggest deal out of it. Like, we know that when LeBron retires, it's going to be national news, as it should be. LeBron came in the league.
In fairness to him,
yeah,
like Kobe's farewell tour, like LeBron deserves that just as much as Kobe did. I know, like,
absolutely,
we've talked about it on here. I love D Wade; he's my guy. But Wade's tour wasn't great. I didn't like that.
Fuck.
It was kind of, his was almost forced. Kobe's was like, oh, this is like maybe the greatest player of our generation for a lot of people. Not me, I think it's LeBron, but for a lot of people, Kobe really is like the greatest player of the generation in the last like iteration of Mike, if you will. And so people were like, that Kobe mentality, I've learned from you. Like, I need to play you one more time. I need to get that commemoration with you. And then obviously he left out on the best last game you'll ever have, and you probably will never see a better last game than that. Obviously, there's a possibility. Someone like LeBron could do it, but that Kobe game, obviously 60, and coming back clutch shots late, I think 23 in the fourth. So, yeah, but go on.
Whenever LeBron's last game is, I was just going to say, like, he came in with a splash. He deserves to leave with a splash. That's why I don't believe for a second I'm considering not coming. Like, come on. Like, what the fuck? He can't stay out of the spotlight. He loves the spotlight, which whatever. But just adding to, like, the last game, what you said about Kobe, LeBron in his last game should just try to, like, cuss out the refs as much as possible and see if they'll eject him, because they won't. You know what I mean? So he should get in touch with his like inner Draymond, inner Dennis Rodman, and just like go ballistic on the refs, because they'll just have to not. They'll give him one tee, but they ain't gonna give him two.
They won't do.
We can move on though. Because I know we got a lot to get to.
Okay, so I have a question for you guys again. So,
cool. And
it has to do with this series and this team and the Lakers, and possibly after we can segue. So, how do you feel Anthony Davis played throughout these playoffs? And I know we talked about, Kyle, that he played his way out of a trade. And then with him, he just does things where he just disengages and does weird, like, I don't know. He just comes and goes a little bit too much. But how do you guys feel he played throughout these entire playoffs?
I'll go first. On a grade scale, I would say A-. Because even though he wasn't all that he was supposed to be on offense, it probably wasn't as bad as we made it out to be if you go through his games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the games where he was on, they weren't just like, 25 and 10s. They were monster games. You know what I mean? I mean, he had a 30 and 23.
40 and 10.
I think he averaged about 4 blocks in the Warriors series, or maybe even this year. Like, he was just, he showed himself to be the best rim protector in the league, which is saying something, because you got Joel Embiid in the league, and he can protect the rim as well as anybody. But no, I think this is the best defensively I've seen him since, that 2020 season in LA and his last seasons in New Orleans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, there was many people in that 2019 season talking about, hey, and that's why he was drafted number 1. Hey, he has best player in the league potential. He's more of a 1B.
Giannis or AD was a question.
Right, and he's more of a 1B than a 1A. We see now he's not quite built like Giannis and Jokic, quite literally. I mean, he can't stay healthy at all, seemingly, even though this year he stayed more healthy. So I would say an A-. He stayed healthy in the postseason for the most part. Yeah. His offense came and went, but when it was there, it was explosive. He was the best defensive player in the postseason, I think, regardless of what happens in the finals. Bam would be up there too, but if we did a first team All-NBA or first playoff team, I think Anthony Davis would be on it. And definitely, if not, on the second team. Yeah. So
it'd be now in my head. It'd be just off the head, just thinking real quick. It'd be Jokic, AD, Jimmy Butler, probably Steph, and then probably Devin Booker. But depending on how far he went, but probably Devin Booker. But the way he ended was I was gonna say, but probably Devin Booker would be your first team, because I'd say Tatum and LeBron would be on your second team. But
we can do this after the playoffs. Actually, we can do this after the playoffs. We can make our own.
That'd actually be nice.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Top 10, maybe even top 15 if we keep it to the regular season criteria. But I would say AD was their best player overall, because I didn't think Bron got his numbers, but it wasn't typical of LeBron, where he just had his fingerprints all over the game. I thought the Nuggets series was his best series. He didn't have to bring it against Memphis. The Warriors, he would have had to dug deep if the Warriors could have got their shit together, but he didn't really have to until that closeout game. So I would say Anthony Davis overall was their best player. Once again, shouts to Austin Reeves because he was easily the third best player. I'm just very impressed with how smart of a player he is, and he's got sauce to his game. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Austin Reeves. But Anthony Davis was probably the best player. A-. Y'all go ahead.
All right, Kamden, and you, how do you feel Anthony Davis played? This is not my question. This is literally the prelude to what my question is.
Jesus Christ, I gave a
So I would give him that B+. I would give him that B+ to A-, same spot. Right. I'd give him like an 89, 90. Defensively, he showed himself to be the best defender in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Offensively, I'm not going to lie, I've literally never seen somebody go odd games great, even games bad like he did for a while. And it was killing me, man. Like, he would have just a phenomenal game. And he was pissing me off just as much as Jason Tatum might piss me off.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Of just, like, streakiness. And I'm like, where is this inconsistency coming from? What's going on? Where's the initiative that we want you to be a dog, dude?
Yeah.
Like, if he even gave us half as much, even just a little bit more of that dog and just was a little more consistent, I'd give him an A, 95. But I'm at that 90% level just because there's just that one factor of he's showing us he can't be the guy. He can't be 1A.
Okay. And I'm perfectly fine with that. And so this is just a yes or no question. Would you guys trade him this coming off season if the right package was there?
No.
Right package? Was LeBron staying?
LeBron staying, yeah.
The right package, yes.
Okay.
What's define the right package?
Because the thought of me was with Anthony Davis up and down play and sometimes of his unreliability, I don't even know if that's a word, but we're going to use it as one, unreliability as a guy who you can completely trust because of his health. If you get a look, because LeBron might be able to play around the same level, because even if age takes him down a touch, I think the fact that he was injured this year, as you alluded to, and like we kind of can see, I think he'll get all that rectified. And if he can stay healthy, I don't see how. Yeah, it is a big if for sure. And so, as I say, same thing with Anthony Davis. So I'm proposing you guys a trade here as Celtics fans. Would you trade Anthony Davis for Jaylen Brown and Rob Williams?
Yes.
Me first or Kyle?
Whomever, I don't care.
Me first?
Yeah.
I'd take it. That's straight up, dude. Straight up. Jaylen Brown and Rob Williams?
Yep.
Absolutely, I would do that. No, hands down. No questions asked. No questions asked.
Okay, so you would take it as a Celtics fan. Would you take it as a Lakers fan?
As a Lakers fan?
No.
Rob Williams going in that spot. They got a lot of work. It would be hard to figure out the Austin Reeves, Jaylen Brown, LeBron James.
I think that works very well. I think that works very well.
I was because I think what you have is you have LeBron being able to play true point. And then you have Jaylen Brown being your legitimate best scorer, because obviously LeBron's not looking to do that, especially at this point. And then you have Austin Reeves as a guy who can complement with Roy Hachimura. You would get Rob Williams. You would get D'Angelo would obviously be gone. You would try to bolster the bench, getting like one or two veteran players. I'm just okay. Obviously, I don't think either team would say no, in my personal opinion.
That's a big yes to me.
I don't think either would say no. But Kyle, if that was as a Celtics fan and then as a Lakers fan, would you take that on either side?
Celtics probably, yeah. I mean, he should have came to Boston when he went to LA. We had the best package, but that's neither here nor there. That's exactly who Danny Ainge was prepping for, was AD. Is what it is. I would take that. I'll get to my Celtics thoughts later when we get to the Eastern Conference. Because, there's some trades I'd like to make. Would I take that if I'm the Lakers? No. Why? Because, if they're upset with fucking AD being paper mache, they ain't gonna like Rob Williams. Rob Williams can't play. There's no way Rob Williams can play 82 games, and he definitely can't play. Let's say he played 50 minutes or 50 games. Sorry, if he played 50 games, he cannot play 32 to 34 minutes like Anthony Davis. He's a 25-minute player. In the postseason, you'd be lucky to get him at 30. He was a big part of what Boston did last year in the playoffs, all season last year. And he's just now starting to start. You know what I mean? Like in must-win games, he's starting for Joe Maz. So,
yeah,
he's a big question mark, as much of a talent as he is. You mentioned point guard LeBron. LeBron's interesting to me because we've heard since they got AD, like, oh, I'm going to lessen the load. AD's going to take over. And LeBron hasn't really relinquished that. Not even this series as well as...
I also don't think AD took it. That's a hard thing,
AD didn't take it, yeah.
Maybe so, but that was part of why they brought Westbrook. Austin Reeves definitely ascended. Like, he certainly ascended. And, I think the series goes a different way if you give Austin Reeves a little more. I mean, we saw how... This is what I didn't touch on. LeBron he's old. Like, he was doing what I do in pickup when I'm out of shape, which is, oh, word, I just gave it a good run for the last 5 possessions. I'm going to jack up a 3 if I get the ball right here because I'm definitely not exerting energy getting to the rim. You know what I mean? Like, that's what Bron was doing a lot of the time, was just jacking up 3s because he's like, fuck else am I going to do? I'm not going to the rim here. If they hypothetically just Jaylen Brown, Austin Reeves, LeBron, that's a great trio. And then, Rob Williams. I don't think that'll happen. That is a great hypothetical trade, though, that I never even thought of. But I think AD's there for the long haul, truly. I think, like we said earlier, I think he played his way out of a trade. But had he gotten injured again, I think he's absolutely out of there. But I think he's there to stay. I think...
I would agree with that personally, but I would honestly do the trade, but I agree that I don't think it would ever happen. Yep. Because I really do think Anthony Davis played his way out of being even in trade talks. Like they would have to get like a package for them to be like, yeah, we could trade AD, or like something terrible would have to happen going on to next season. But as of this moment right now, I couldn't see it. But it was something I was thinking about just because, especially with Jaylen Brown's like demeanor going back and forth. Like, he's just, like, obviously...
And he's owed a Supermax.
I was going to say, he's owed the Supermax, and then if they go that to Tatum and Brown, their cap flexibility,
will end up the Washington Wizards,
it's tough. So it's going to be movement around. It's going to be tough, but...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last thing about the Lakers I want to say is, let's assume they bring Austin Reeves back. It's going to be hard for them to sign both Reeves and Rui. They're both restricted free agents, I believe.
They can if they move Russell. That's right. Essentially.
Is it even if they move Russell? I think it's either. If that's the case, then that's easy. Then they'll bring them both back.
I think they will be able. I think they're able to. Like, they can bring the whole team back. I just think Russell's one of those pieces that they're going to have to move. And like,
well, he's a free agent. They just don't even have to sign him back.
75 cents on the dollar for that. But go on.
They don't even have to move him because he's a free agent, right? I think Russell's.
Oh, is he a free agent? Then I don't think
believe so.
If he is an unrestricted free agent, then I think if they don't touch him at all, then they're able to get like Reeves, Hachimura, and possibly Vanderbilt. I don't really know.
I don't. From what I heard, I don't believe that's true. I think they're gonna have to choose one of Rui and Austin Reeves, and then on top of that, I believe Kyrie's going there. So I think they'd have to choose. Maybe Reeves and Kyrie.
Oh, in that case, they would definitely be choosing. They would definitely be choosing
people. Yep.
And that would be interesting.
I don't like that.
So I just don't know
personally, but that's me.
I just don't know. But imagine if Dallas. So let's say that happens and Dallas fucking trades what they traded. If they don't make that trade, they probably make the playoffs as is, right? But let's say if the Lakers, because Kyrie was clearly,
right?
Kyrie clearly wanted out. Let's say the Lakers would have got him instead of D'Lo this year. And maybe they don't get Rui. That was a separate trade, though. So let's say they get Rui, and it's as is, and they got Kyrie in that Nuggets series. I think that's a different series. I think we're looking at a 7-game series there with the load that takes off LeBron. And Kyrie's an underrated playmaker. We'll never know, obviously, but I think as constructed, that's a good matchup against the Nuggets with Kyrie, with
Yeah.
AD, with LeBron. But
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Sure.
I agree with that. But so we can move
guys,
on.
hold on. Just got a notification. Your guys are going to want to hear this, all right?
Yeah.
The Panthers swept the Hurricanes.
Woo!
Let's go.
Let's go, Florida
Fucking go.
Panthers. That's where we're from, even though we're a
That's
lightning
so
town.
crazy, dude.
Yeah, shout out to the Florida Panthers. We can't rep
I
for
didn't
the
even know there
Tampa Bay Lightning, but
I didn't even know there was a Florida Panthers. That's the first. Where do they even play?
I don't know.
That's fair. I've never even heard of them.
You know
play
what?
in,
We have this thing called Google. So
No, we don't care. We don't care. We got a lot to get to. Fuck the Florida Panthers.
Hey,
We got much to get to.
Hey, we don't hate on
It's
this
like
team,
11
man.
already.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, okay. Anyways, so in way more important news than the Florida Panthers, shout out to the Florida Panthers for getting to their Stanley Cup final, but
I guess.
shout out. But anyways,
You guys thought I was going to break some real news there, too.
I checked. I'm not gonna lie to you. I got a vibrate a minute ago, and I was like, "Oh, what did I miss something?" And then I was like, "Oh no, this is just fantasy football alerts. It's nothing that I need to be considered about." So,
Yeah.
what is Kyle breaking? Yeah, Miami versus Boston. Let me just set, because you guys are Celtics fans. I feel like I'm gonna have to set the table here. Let me just get my Miami Heat thoughts out real quick. We're here. I'm happy about this. I feel very, very confident going into Game 5. I know Jaylen Brown said, "Don't let us win Game 4." Okay, Jaylen. We'll see. I'll believe it. I'll believe it when I see it. Anyways, regardless, I am very confident going into Game 5. I feel more confident, honestly, in Boston than I do in Miami just because of how Boston's been at home. So I feel very confident regardless. I'm interested to see what you guys say about everything there, and then I'm going to get into my thoughts on Tatum, Mazzulla, Brown, the whole Celtics collective, and then I'll get on my thoughts of the Heat. But the floor is all yours. Take it.
Let me go first. I've been waiting on this for a while.
I know, you've been eager, so you got it.
Shocked that the Celtics won yesterday. Like, absolutely shocked they won yesterday.
Likewise.
Let me say one more time, shocked that they won yesterday. I very nearly, I was this close to getting tickets for tomorrow's game. Did not. Chose not to.
Okay.
Weirdly confident in them tomorrow. I think there is a Game 6. Matter of fact, let me introduce a new segment right here.
Yeah.
Castro's Cash Picks. Book the Celtics winning tomorrow. If you're betting on sports, bet the Celtics tomorrow. I believe they win. I believe if they get up double digits, especially in the second half, I believe the Heat will kind of wave the white flag and try to win it in a Game 6 in Miami. Let me just give the Celtics props here before I get into a teardown of the Celtics because I've been ready. They played amazing defense last night. If they played that way the entire playoffs, the way they played on defense, they might have skated to the finals. This might not have even been a series had they played that way. Or they at least might be ahead in the series. I think overall, over any team in the playoffs, and maybe I'm just leaving someone out here, but over anybody, I think they have potential to be an outstanding defensive team compared to everyone else. Like 1 through 9, 1 through 10, they've got just such versatility defensively. And then when that happens, you see what happens last night, which is they move the ball well. They can get threes whenever they want. And, when they're making their threes, they're pretty damn hard to beat, right? Regardless of who's coaching them. I think that carries over. The energy, the unselfishness they played with last night. Tatum, when they're up, the Celtics are very much a front-running team. When they're up, Tatum's like, he looks like prime Kevin Durant or something like that. You know what I mean? He's just got that hop in his step. He's got that extra sauce in his hezzy before he's pulling up. Like you can just see it in his step, right? Kind of like LeBron when
the offense comes easy to him. I mean, obviously, when the offense comes easy to him, he becomes the best scorer in the league, arguably. Like, obviously, like, there's Durant, there's Devin Booker, there's Steph, there's other people, but, like, he's on that very short list of, like, best scorers in the league, especially when
it's easy for him.
the freedom of movement, there's no, like, the ball's moving. So then instead of having to hold the ball from 17 down, he holds the ball from like 8. Couple quick moves, step back, get to his spots. Like that's real. When he's in that bag, he's really like one of the best scorers and obviously one of the best players in the league. But you can go on with what you're talking about.
So it's like this. It's 3-1. They're playing with great energy. They're gonna get calls. The Garden's gonna be rocking tomorrow. They're gonna get calls, and I think they're gonna be much in control of the game, right? And I think the Heat are going to make their runs. But I think overall the Celtics, I think the Celtics will pull away. And the Heat will kind of no-mas it and just, wait for a Game 6, where they'll have Lowry. And that'll be more of an even playing field. The refs ain't going to give the Celtics the calls they will at home in a Game 5 and a must-win, right? Mm-hmm. That being said, if it does wind up being a close game, I trust the Heat 1,000 times more than I trust the Celtics in a close game. If it would have been a close game last night, towards like down the stretch, I wholeheartedly believe Miami would have came away with it. I can get to their offseason and more of that. I want Cam to answer first, but I'll get to their offseason. But I do believe the Celtics win tomorrow night. I do believe there will be a Game 6 on Saturday in Miami. And if I was betting on it, I would say the Heat win in 6. I do. But I do think I'm very bullish. Sure. And again, I have no reason to be. Like, I fucking hate this team. I do not like this team at all. The Celtics fan, I do not like this team at all. Keenan, this is not a joke. I have text to prove it. I've said this to other people. I've been actively rooting against the Celtics since Game 5 of the Philly series. Actively rooting against them. You can clip this. I don't care. Take my Celtics card, whatever y'all want to do. I don't care. I've been rooting against them. They did not deserve to win Game 6 in Philly. Tatum makes those couple shots, and then what happens? 51, blah, blah, blah. They did not show up. They quit in Game 3 of this series. They couldn't have been. That's exactly why I would have picked against them yesterday. That's exactly why I'm shocked that they won yesterday. Yep. They couldn't be bothered to show up to Game 3. They showed up like their life was on the line because it was yesterday. I don't know where that's been all playoffs. And, I've scrutinized this coach, Joe Mazzulla, but it's unfair because, it is fair. It's fair, but it's unfair when they show they can play like that in a game like last night. I think it'll carry over tomorrow. I think the Heat will win in 6, but I do think it gets to 6 games. Again, Castro's cash picks. Book the Celtics tomorrow. If you're a betting man, bet on them tomorrow. I think they win. Blah, 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 blah. Cam, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I actually went to game.
Are you making? Sorry, Cam. I just have a quick question. Kyle, are you gonna make Castro's cash picks like a thing? Like, can we make that a thing?
Yeah.
Especially coming in for football.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Oh. Okay, because obviously we do our weekly picks, and then maybe like you can have your like special like Castro's cash pick of the week.
It'll only be when it's warranted. I'll never force a pick. I wholeheartedly believe for some fucking reason that the Celtics are going to win tomorrow. Okay. Don't know why. Well, actually, I gave you why. I do know why, but whatever. Let's let Cam go.
Yeah, I'm absolutely sorry to interrupt, Cam. You go now. You do your thing.
No worries, dude.
You do your thing.
Yeah. So, I actually went to game 1 for this series.
Wow,
and I have never
thanks for sharing that,
disappointed.
Cam. Got a whole group chat. I didn't even share that.
I just shared it just barely.
All right.
I shared it just barely.
Group chat.
I'm sorry. Well, let me tell you something. I've never been as disappointed in a third quarter and afterwards at a live game in my life. Granted, the Heat were not missing threes to save their life, but it was just third quarter. We got blown out. I've never seen I didn't know what was going on. What was going on with us defensively? This is crazy. And at the same time, in that first half, I was like, this Marcus Smart is playing point guard again and throwing some of the best passes I've ever seen him throw in my life. These lobs to Rob are awesome. Give me that every game, Marcus Smart. Now I'm back on the trade of let's get rid of his ass because I'm over him. But that's here nor there.
You and Nate Kennison both.
But that game, it just blows my mind. The Celtics team. We've been saying all year, the stats show us they are the best team statistically. Their bench is so deep. And like we all said, we're going to start talking about this Missoula, Tatum, all the things. Frustrating me to no end. Jaylen Brown, I need those 40-point games that you give me sometimes. I need them. And stop turning the ball over. But all in all, third game, one of the first games I've ever turned off in my life. I was like, over this team. Over them. Get rid of everybody. We need to clean house. Going into the fourth game, right? I was a person that said, you know what, Brad? Screw Joe Missoula. You come coach this team in Game 4. Just come do it, Brad Stevens. Get him off the field. Get him off the court. That's what I wanted. Brad to come in and coach him. Now, granted, they won Game 4. That's what I was looking for all year long. Like Kyle said, I awkwardly have, like, a hope of, like, the Celtics team is back. And I think Kyle's pick is good because, honestly, I think the Celtics are scared to lose at home. If they get blown out at home again, they're not coming back. The band is not coming back at all. Celtics fans in Boston will be against all of them. And the heat they'll be getting, unmatched. Losing to an 8 seed
No pun
at
intended.
home. Yep. So I think if the Celtics can do what they did all season and not do this awful, not calling timeouts at the right time, this weak-ass defense that they literally showed us last game in Game 4 that they can play defense and actually be out there and not get soft-switching everything so Jimmy can get any matchup he wants. Yep. Like, Jason Tatum is one of the best defenders at that position. He should be on Jimmy every time. And if there's going to be some sort of switch, find a way to put Al on him. Find a way to get Jaylen Brown on him. Figure that out. Trap him. Double team him. I don't care. And then Joe Missoula. I don't understand why this happens, and I need somebody to explain this to me. Why does Tatum sit so long in the fourth quarter all the time? The man, he's on the bench from the start of the fourth until there's 8, 9 minutes left, sometimes 7. It's ridiculous. He's your best player. He needs to be out there. LeBron James has played entire games still at his age. I guarantee Tatum can do this. He had played the most minutes in the NBA in the season. He can play right now. So we need to see Tatum. I want Tatum in the whole time, literally the whole time if they're not winning, until they get to Game 7. And if they get to Game 7, they got this. But the big game that they need to win is against the Heat in Game 6. I don't know if they can do it. I really don't. This Heat team, they're coached by a coach that is one of the best coaches out there. He's a mastermind. Yep.
Sorry, Greg. You're old. The best coach in the league in Eric Spoelstra.
Yes. Yep. He is the best one. He's a mastermind. He has gotten these types of players that are undrafted on these things. He's got Jimmy Butler. They got the same mind. They literally have the same mind of just like making the right calls. Bam is doing an awesome job facilitating the ball, just getting boards, getting lobs. I love Bam. He's so fun to watch. But Caleb Martin, this dude comes out of nowhere. He's just not missing. I love this Heat culture thing that's going on. So I think Kyle has some truth. But if the Celtics get to Game 7, they win and make history. And if they get there, they've got so much going for them. I need them to win the championship. But
I would not have that much confidence in a Game 7. Let me continue because Cam brought up Joe Missoula. I definitely have questions about his coaching. I kind of wondered, had they gotten swept, would Missoula be back? Because they took the interim tag off, they extended him, and it would be un-Celtics-like for them to just not have that continuity. But at the same time, I do believe he's overmatched. I believe if you had to ask me right now, I think he comes back and they'll have some veteran assistant coach. Because that's what's also underrated about this staff is, remember, the whole Ime thing happened like a week before training camp, right? It was already going to be a young assistant staff. Their lead assistant is now Utah's head coach. All right. And he was apparently a big part of last year's success as far as Ime's success and whatever. I don't, even though Nick Nurse and such is available, I just don't see Mazzulla getting fired. I think it'll be a veteran staff, whatever. I have a lot of questions about what he does. My main gripe, you know, he doesn't call a lot of timeouts, whatever. You said your thing about Tatum. He sits him too long. I agree with that. My biggest thing, Grant Williams should have never been shelved the way he was shelved, right? Like, I think he does just about exactly what Al Horford does. Like, Grant's such a smart player. He's such a versatile defender. People shit on him a lot. And I got to say, like, it was already embarrassing to be a Celtics fan with them down 3-0. But the most embarrassed I've ever been of the Celtics fan base, Keenan and Cam, was after game 2 when Grant was talking shit, getting in Jimmy's face. There was dead ass, I'm embarrassed to say this. There were Celtics fans who were like, oh, Grant should have never talked to Jimmy. That's the reason we lost. I'm like, do you see the fucking effort these players are playing with right now? Like, I want Grant to be in. I'm like, that's like, how did, like, I was embarrassed of Celtics fans. Like, we seen KG, Paul, Rondo, and Ray. Are you kidding me? Like, that's the last thing they would have done is back down from Jimmy. That's exactly what you got to do. Jimmy's a dog. You can't be a puppy around a dog. You got to bite back. That's what Grant did. That's exactly what this team is missing, is fighting him. And Grant, brought it out of him. Granted, we saw none of that in game 3. We finally saw it in game 4, but I was embarrassed of what I was seeing on Twitter from Celtics fans talking about, Grant Williams is the reason we lost the game. No, we need more of what Grant Williams brought. That was embarrassing. And the last thing I'll say about this team, regardless of what happens, I don't think this team makes it to the finals still. I think we get to a game 6. We'll see what happens after that. But if there were to be a Jalen trade, because we mentioned the Jalen for AD one, I think the trade is Jaylen Brown for Damian Lillard, because you don't get any of these problems if you got a Damian Lillard on your team. Don't matter who the coach is. Don't matter whether Grant Williams is playing or not. Dame Lillard's not going to back down. Dame Lillard's not going to let you fold. Dame Lillard's not going to go 1 for 10, much like Tatum was in, a lot of these games where he just shoots himself out of it. Dame's going to have an impact one way or another. And I know he's basically a one-way player. He's not a great defender. But, the problems that the Celtics team's having as far as being soft, as far as not being focused, as far as not being tough, you'd have none of that with Dame Lillard. But so I think that's a possibility. I'd love to see Dame in a Celtics uniform. But we'll see. Who knows? Maybe they do get to the finals. Maybe they do make history, as Cam says. But I think that's a trade that should be explored from Brad Stevens.
All right. So 17 minutes later, we got it all out. I'm really glad that No, this is what I wanted. I really wanted you guys to just go.
So embarrassed of these Celtics fans. Can I say one thing about Jimmy Butler?
Same, dude.
Can I say one thing? I mean,
listen, you guys. Listen, I'm giving you guys the entire floor before I take whatever I need to go.
I said it like it's not happening.
I got nothing after you, Kyle, too.
Just go.
So Jimmy,
it's your guys' pod right now. I'm just here. I'm watching.
So Jimmy, he reminds me very much of Jadakiss, the rapper. I'll tell you why. Jadakiss, his whole career, has called himself top 5 dead or alive. Yeah. It was kind of like one of those things you're like, all right, like obviously he's not top 5 dead or alive, but he said it long enough. And even still to this day, I know neither of you, I don't think Cam listens. I know Keenan doesn't listen to Jadakiss. I don't think Cam does, but Jadakiss right now, like a verse today will be as good of a verse in like 2001 for Jadakiss. Like Jadakiss can rap as well as anybody.
That I can attest to, because I did listen to his latest freestyle. So I do listen to some Jadakiss freestyles from here to there. I just don't listen to too much of his music, but from what I hear, from freestyle-wise at least, I know his pen seems just as sharp as it. He had this on the Leakers, and then he had when Ignatian was out, and then he had obviously the '08 BET Cypher. He had a freestyle there, and both of them, if you compare both of them, that's like 13 years apart at least, 14, 15 even. Just as sharp.
Jada will never give you a whack verse, ever. Ever. Loves hip-hop to the core, like he's just a hip-hop purist. He will never give you a whack verse. Jimmy, how can I not say he's top 5 dead or alive, right? Like if you give me 5 players, he's not going to be the first 5 I think of, but what we're seeing this postseason, how he's scoring the ball, how he's playing, the passion that he's playing with. How can I not call him top 5 dead or alive? Right? Yeah, you might put Durant, Luka. Excuse me, I keep hiccuping right here.
They don't have more
maybe
heart
even a player
than him,
like
so that's
maybe even a player. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's such a pure hooper. I even jokingly called him Jimmy Jeffrey Jordan because he just reminded me of MJ a little bit this postseason, just with his fire that he's getting at.
Triple J.
He's been talking all kinds of shit to Drew Holiday, to Grant, to everybody. You will just yell at you. You cannot fucking guard me. Blah 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 blah. He just reminded me so much of Jadakiss because, again, they're not the first ones you would think of when you say top 5 dead or alive. But then, you go to the actual production of a Jadakiss, of a Jimmy Butler. And, man, it don't matter if they're the 8 seed or the 1 seed. You're in the conference finals with Jimmy. It don't matter if Jadakiss has got a mixtape. Doesn't matter if his albums don't sell the greatest. You're going to get a better verse than, a lot of these higher selling rappers when you got Jadakiss. So that's my comparison with those two. Yeah, I think Jimmy Butler's top 5 dead or alive. And you can make a lot of arguments against Jimmy. But his production says otherwise right now. He's in the conference finals for the 3rd time in 4 years. So,
and just to add to your point a little bit too, obviously when you're talking, obviously the names when you think of hip hop today, or you think of hip hop like when he was like live, like really really in it, you would think of possibly Ludacris. I know not in this order at all, but you think of Eminem, Jay-Z. And people like that, just because they're more popular and whatnot. Not when you're thinking true hip hop, but you know what I mean. My point was saying that
Ludacris, an underrated lyricist, by the way.
Absolutely,
he is disrespected as a lyricist. Yep.
Absolutely.
Can I call a quick timeout right before you get to your point, just because you happen to say Ludacris? Stumbled upon, I forgot about the song. It's off his Theater of the Mind album, Ludacris and Lil Wayne. I forget the actual song it is. I could look it up and I could tell you, but Wayne rips that verse, and it's an underrated Wayne verse from that era, because that was peak Weezy.
I don't fully remember it. I'll have to go back.
Let me look.
Theater of the Mind, the first song that comes to me is I Do It for Hip Hop with Jay-Z and Nas. It's the first song that comes to my head. But anyways, what I was saying about Jada is, obviously, you may not think of him, but anytime you see Jada on a track, say if Jada was featured with Jay-Z, Eminem, I'm just going to throw even like today people, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, or whom not, whatever. Jada coming out with the best verse would not be crazy. Like, him having the best pen on that song would not be crazy. The same thing, like, you have Steph Curry, LeBron James, AD, Nikola Jokic. Jimmy having the best performance, or Jimmy playing the best out of all of them, is not like shocking, but you wouldn't fully think it like just a first thing, just because he's not the first name that comes up. But him being the best player on that court, or best player throughout a series or throughout a playoffs, is not like a shocking thing at all. That's something he just does. So to bolster your point, yeah, I agree with that comparison.
Yeah.
2 things, Keenan. I know Cam wants to make a point. 2 things. Yep. So that song is called Last of a Dying Breed, Luda and Lil Wayne. Mm-hmm. Wayne rips it. Underrated verse. But then, tomorrow at midnight, new music will be dropping. So I go to this Twitter page I follow that, tells you what's dropping tomorrow, right? Durk's dropping an album. Lil Durk's dropping an album. Kodak Black's dropping an album. Unreleased XXXTentacion song's coming out tomorrow. Moneybagg Yo's dropping a mixtape. Taylor Swift and Ice Spice are dropping a song tomorrow, apparently. Was not expecting that. That's the last thing I expected. Okay. I don't know what to make of that.
All right. Swift.
Don't know what to make about that at all.
Taylor Spicy.
That's going to be either embarrassing or probably embarrassing, just all around. So we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. I thought that was interesting. My bad for that detour.
No, you're fine. That's very interesting. Music is definitely something we're going to talk about. There's been a lot of songs that have been coming out lately. J. Cole has been in a lot of them, and I need to talk probably like a 25-minute segment on J. Cole and his evolution. And then Kendrick and Beyonce dropped a song, which obviously is a masterpiece if that's going to happen. You don't have those two on a song and miss. But, all right, Kamden. Back to basketball, back to your Jimmy Butler point. You can go on.
Yeah, so with Jimmy, he is legitimately showing up day in and day out with that mentality of I'm gonna win and I'm the best, and he keeps showing that.
Yeah.
He keeps showing that. And it blows my mind just how well Jimmy and Spoelstra have meshed. It's been really, really cool seeing that, and I think I've heard from other people I've talked to that this is not Jimmy's prime, but I feel like it's got to be.
Oh, it
It's got to be
is.
Jimmy's prime. And
It's the best Jimmy Butler we've seen.
right, and he's just been on just. That's what I'm saying. It's awesome, and he's just rocking this league, and it's been so cool to see him lead this super, just role player heavy team to where they've been and where they're at now.
Yeah.
With that in mind, it's so frustrating to me. The Celtics team, their road to the playoffs this year was insanely easy. You go back on this, they played a 7 seed that made the playoffs by beating this team that they're losing to right now. Okay, they played that team and they lost 2 games to them. And I brushed those
And
two up.
they tried to lose Game 6.
They sure did.
They tried to lose Game 6.
Sure did. Then they go to Philly, and they get the chance to play Philly without Embiid. And they lose that first game with Embiid not there. But their road to the playoffs, they should have, in my opinion, swept, if not beat the Sixers in 5 games. They should have beat them. Now, granted, I did pick in our draft the Sixers, and I got to be winning that thing, to be honest. I've got to be winning that. But then, now they're playing an 8 seed. They're playing an 8 seed, which is full of players that were undrafted. I think their highest pick on the team, if I'm not mistaken, was Kevin Love. If you look at where they've been drafted, was Kevin Love, who's super old, and he is doing nice, not going to lie. But this team they don't have Tyler Hero. They're rocking with Max Strus and Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin.
They ain't even got Oladipo.
But it's just, we should sweep this team. Yeah. Yep, they don't have Oladipo. They don't got Hero. It's tough. So I think the Celtics need to make some moves. I agree with Kyle that I think Dame Lillard would be a good move, but I want more than that. I think we need to get rid of Smart. We need to get rid of Jalen, and we need to get rid of Robert. And these might be not ideal trades, but I would call Chicago, and I would call the Pacers. And I want to figure out what I could get from, if I'm going to Chicago. I know this might sound crazy. Lonzo,
Caruso?
What are you doing with that, man? What are your thoughts? I said Lonzo Ball.
Caruso for Jaylen Brown?
What are your thoughts on... Not Caruso, no. Jaylen Brown, I would trade for Lonzo. I would trade for Zach LaVine, and somehow work that out for Vooch as well, Vucevic. I would figure that out. I don't know what they're going to work out, but I think that unit coming in with Jason Tatum, give them the house for those guys. That unit with Jason Tatum would be nice. Same call to the Pacers. Give me Tyrese. Give me Miles Turner. Let's see what we can do with Tatum. Because this is another point that I have.
Entered the pod. Oh man, it took about $110. People were waiting, like, wait a second, who is this guy?
People are like, where's Cam?
Camden has entered the pod. Everybody, he is here. Thank the Lord,
those are the
he's
two
here.
things that I want.
Can we just?
I know you think my trades are crazy. These are my thoughts, though.
I'll say this.
I know.
I'll say this.
And they're not even bad thoughts. It's just Camden's entered the pod. Fine. Okay, there we go. Kyle,
I'll say this.
on.
The Pacers trade's crazy only because the Pacers are never giving up Halliburton, even if it is for Jaylen Brown.
It's true. It's true.
I like the Lonzo piece of the trade because I do think we need a true point guard, and there's a second part to this that I do want to talk about. That's a move. Would love Lonzo. He might never play again for all we know. Like that knee injury, unfortunately, sounds like
I
more
know.
serious. But in a vacuum, yeah, I would take Lonzo for Smart. I think he does a lot of what Smart does.
I wouldn't trade Lonzo for Smart. I'm just saying if I am the Bulls, I am not taking Marcus Smart for Lonzo Ball.
It's a package,
I would.
though.
Well, I know. I'm just saying.
I would if I'm the Bulls.
Like if you're the,
I would if I'm the
well, I mean,
Bulls because we don't. Lonzo's probably a better player,
yes.
but Lonzo.
In this, I mean, obviously health wise, yeah, but Lonzo has more potential, and I think Lonzo's a better player. So I wouldn't take that. No, not me personally. I mean, that's everything being healthy. Obviously, like right now, I would trade him because like Smart plays, Lonzo might not ever play again.
I would take Dame over the trio you just said though. Of Vooch, LaVine. I think LaVine's kind of overrated. Not a big LaVine guy, but I would love. I mean, Vooch and Lonzo in a vacuum. I might even take that instead of just LaVine. I don't think LaVine and Tatum go together well. I don't really like LaVine as a defender. But the other route of this, let's say they keep everyone together, I wouldn't mind seeing the Celtics get Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul would fit great on this team. They just need that. And again, Smart, when he wants to be, can be a true point guard, and he can be effective. And I think Smart's been much better than how he looked, especially the second half of the regular season. He's still not the defender he was, a year ago, 2 years ago, but he's still more effective. I think he's certainly been better on offense too. But if they kept the band together, I wouldn't mind seeing them getting Chris Paul and just adding him outright or whatever that trade would be. But yeah, all around they're still disappointing. Jalen especially, he's been horrendous up until last night. Tatum, he's been up and down, we know that. But Jalen, yeah, he's been especially disappointing. But yeah.
Okay. All right. So now gonna just insert myself into here and talk a little bit of Celtics, talk a little bit of Heat. Gotta get some Heat love on this. So first thing, while we're talking Celtics, I know that like sports media, Twitter life, and everybody's only blaming Joe Mazzulla for life and thinks that like that's the only problem because last year they had Udoka and they got to the finals, and this year they're going to lose and possibly we're going to get swept, and now they might lose in 5, 6, whatever they lose in, or they could make history, but we don't know. I don't fully agree with that because the same problems that there were last year are still rearing their head this year, and obviously I'm not trying to make it sound like Mazzulla's doing a cool job. He's really not doing a cool job, but we knew a lot of this stuff prior. Like this isn't like new stuff. But like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
I would say it's regression is what I would say it is.
From
on the
players?
Celtics part. On the Celtics part,
or
absolutely.
In coaching.
And coaching. Oh yeah, no,
in coaching, but also on the players' part. I think.
No, that's what I'm getting into.
Yeah,
definitely. I agree with you. Like,
I wouldn't call it more of the same though, because they had a habit for blowing. I don't want to say that. They definitely blew some leads to like the Warriors, right? They were inconsistent against the Warriors, but they would at least hold leads last year. The beginning of the season, we saw them give up a lot of leads last year. But I thought they would at least hold leads. So I've seen regression. I'll let you finish, though. I've seen more regression than more of the same, I would say.
Yeah, I mean,
regression to the first half.
That's kind of what my point was going. I mean, like, the obviously coaching aspect has taken them down a notch for sure. And I'm not saying that isn't important because coaching is very important in the league. You see in the difference in teams all the time about coaching really plays a big part in winning games. That's why you have a coach. But Marcus Smart making dumb plays, Jason Tatum not being able to hold on to the ball, Jaylen Brown not searching for his shot. Like, I understand that Mazzulla is not calling plays for him, but again, he's not 14. He is an NBA adult.
It's the opposite of that. It's the opposite of that, though, with Jaylen. Jaylen's jacking up just dumb shit.
No. When he does shoot, I feel like he goes like stretches without shooting, and then he'll get into like I need to shoot, and then we'll just shoot a lot. Like
stupid shots,
it's just
like
I just feel like there are some times where you need to.
Off.
I agree, and that's not a Mazzulla thing. Like that, like you're just trying to tell me one coach just completely turns your IQ to being bad.
Yeah,
like,
in a
way.
I have a bad That's where Ime came in though. Was Ime is a tough. Yes. He's a tough coach. That is where you got to have discipline to knock that shit out.
But I mean, if you already have, I agree with you. I do agree with you if you knock it out, but I also feel like you have to have some player accountability there. They are the ones on the court. They are the ones doing that. So if you're going to have stupid mistakes.
That's where coaching comes in, though. That's where coaching comes in, is the player accountability.
Yeah, but you should have some self-accountability. You guys are NBA athletes at the highest of levels. Yeah. I agree with you. That's where coaching comes in. That's where Craig Popovich does what he does. That's what Steve Kerr does what he does. I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that it can't just be only on coaching. Like, this is a player thing, too.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Players
no, it is, but I'm saying,
players are making,
I'm saying that you're 100% right, but I'm saying that's where the coaching comes in, though, is those little nuances, the fine-tuning, that respect for Ime as a former player, the fact that he, Brad was a different style of coach. He was a more laid-back coach. Ime was not afraid to get in their ear. Not that Brad was, but in a different style, he was like, yo, y'all got to buckle up with this shit. And we saw in the second half, it was a night and day team with them in 2022. Night and day since after the new year. And that's where you saw the difference.
And they respected him.
They respect him. And they don't respect Mazzulla in the same way. So you are going to see more of a...
They don't.
All right, fuck it. If y'all ain't going to do this, I'm just going to go one-on-one. And that's what we've seen a lot with Jalen this series, is him just being like, all right, I'm going to go one-on-one. I'm going to dribble into three players, this and that. So that's where... So I would disagree with you. I think it's not necessarily that Mazzulla's a bad coach. Clearly, they had some sort of confidence in him. It's just that he doesn't have the respect or the know-how or the experience to get that other stuff out of the players. But I get what you're saying, though, as in, the players gotta,
I get
kind of hold it together. But they're still a young team, though. That's the thing. I get what you're saying, but that's a difference, though. Tatum and Brown ain't Steph and Clay. They ain't. They're just a level below of where they were at 25, 26. That's where I'm coming from. That's why, I'm just disappointed with this team. I think Tatum.
I get what you're saying. I really
Tatum,
do,
though, at 27, 28. My bad. I was saying,
you're right.
Tatum at 27, 28, though, I think he will have more control over the game. The way Jokic has control over a game, the way Jimmy Butler has more control over a game now. Jimmy Butler didn't have that type of control over a game at 25. Jalen, I don't know if he'll ever have that type of feel for the game. But I think that is where coaching comes in, where you're going to have to rein in your team when it gets sloppy. Joe does not have that yet, or have that respect.
Yes, I know, and I agree with you. I believe that's where some of the regression has come, but I also feel like, again, that you just have to have some self-accountability, I guess, because even when I was playing in high school, I felt we should have some self-accountability, and that's when you're literally playing with teenagers. But, I don't...
But that comes from coaching, though, either way. Your coaching still...
No, I understand. No, it does, but it also doesn't. It doesn't only just come from coaching. It comes from who you are as a person and what you hold yourself accountable to. And no, that's what I'm saying.
But it comes from the top, too, I believe.
I get it. No, I am agreeing with what you're saying. But I'm also saying, if I was on a court playing like garbage, I should look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm playing like garbage. I am playing for the Celtics, one of the most storied franchises in the entire NBA, in the entire world of sports. Larry Bird, Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, Paul Pierce, KG, all-time greats have worn this jersey, have played and had these great fans back me. Why am I just doing stupid things?
And my response to that would be...
again, and that is a coach's job to tell you, and if Mazzulla's not doing a good job at that, yes, but if I am a superstar in Jason Tatum... and I've been to the finals, I've been in the playoffs religiously, I think at some point I need to look at myself and say, even if I am younger, I should be able to do this. That's just my personal opinion.
Here's what I'm saying, though.
Sure.
You're correct in what you're saying.
I would...
One second. I just want to respond to this, all right? You're 100% right. And that's why I think Tatum at this point, he's a star. He's not a superstar at the level of maybe what Bron, Curry, Dwayne Wade were at 25, 26. Because Tatum doesn't kind of step up to the bill when shit's not going right. Granted, in Game 6 he did. Had a bad game, stepped up in the last 3 minutes, whatever. But my response to that would be, let's switch the coaches right now. We put Eric Spoelstra on the Celtics and put Joe Mazzulla on the Heat right now. All the shit you're seeing with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I guarantee you it would be nullified if Spoelstra was their coach. So yes, we're both correct in saying Tatum should look in the mirror, right? Tatum should be better, and he should be able to go, okay, I'm playing like shit. I got to switch it up somehow. I got to get more out of myself. Yes, of course he does. But this is where the youth comes in, and him just being a level below, like a true superstar. That's where someone like Spoelstra or Ime Udoka or a tough coach is going to take you over the top. Whereas if you put Mazzulla on the Heat right now, I don't think they're in the conference finals. They probably lose in the first round to the Bucks, regardless if Giannis is there or not. So that's where I think the difference is. Yeah, Tatum absolutely has to be more accountable, and that's kind of the stuff I've been saying on Twitter towards Celtics fans who like are trying to blame it all on Joe, which again he deserves a lot of the blame. But I believe Tatum deserves. I'm 100% with you. Tatum deserves a lot more blame than he's getting. I don't know what he's getting in the national media, but Tatum and Brown absolutely deserve all the smoke, along with Mazzulla. But if you give them,
I just don't feel like they are getting it as much as they should. Or not that they're not getting it. I just feel as if when we're talking about it, that they should be talked about just as much as Mazzulla, because yes,
especially from their fan base.
Mazzulla is. Yeah, no, you're right. And because as Mazzulla is coaching the game, they literally are playing the game. Like Mazzulla can't make them shoot the ball.
But here's the difference with that too.
That's I will say this.
I'll let Cam go. Go ahead, Cam.
Yeah. So I would say, like, this, I feel bad for Mazzulla because the position he was put in is really tough. Mm-hmm. Like Kyle said, that coaching staff got obliterated. Ime, gone. Mazzulla moves up. Nobody takes his spot. Stoudemire, who I thought was actually going to get the interim job, he's out of there. I think he's coaching at Georgia Tech now. Another guy went to Utah. These things, and they didn't replace any of these dudes. Mazzulla is a young guy that I think could morph into a really, really great coach. But the players themselves do not respect this man. Literally, when I was at this game, right, you would watch a timeout happen. I would give it 15 seconds of Mazzulla talking to the players. Nobody's really listening. Then they're all back on the court. Spo is talking to his players the entire time, drawing something up. When I saw, I forget what game it was that they were playing the Sixers, and they had the chance to win the game with, they called timeout, a few seconds left, we had the ball last, and Tatum had the ball, and he passes it out to Smart. Game 5. That, whatever play Mazzulla drew up was trash.
Oh, it was 4.
I don't know
Sorry,
what
it was 4.
happened.
But my bad. It was 4.
Okay.
Go on.
Well, he didn't even draw up a play. They went
trash.
That's when they had 2 timeouts in the pocket.
That's what I'm saying. He didn't draw up anything. Yep.
But that's where, to Keenan's point, Tatum should have went earlier, too.
Oh, I'm just going to let him play.
That's what I mean. Like, those are the type of things that I'm talking about. But you're right, though. When you're talking about, like, sometimes mentality, like say when you were coaching our AAU team, not that we're NBA players or anything like that, but, like, obviously I hold myself accountable. Matt Duncan would hold himself accountable. Camden would hold himself accountable. But obviously there are times, like, in a game where we'd get lax, and you, instead of being just sitting there, be like, okay, guys, that's fine. You'd be like, no, guys, we're playing against inferior competition. Why are we playing like garbage? So, no, you're right. That's where a coach comes in and says, no, we know how you are, but at the same time, I should know that, like, okay, I'm trying to dribble between double teams right now. That is stupid. I know how to play the game at this point. I should definitely change how I am playing the game. I don't know. So I take it in both senses, because I think about it as if I was a player, what I should do, and then I also understand from a coach's aspect that's something that they have to instill in you. But if it's been instilled in you before, does it just uninstall? Like, do we just delete the app because the coach is gone?
Yeah. It's true.
In some cases, though. But
it's true.
Listen, Tatum still...
I do think that it's more on the players.
Yeah. Tatum's still maturing as a player. Him and Jalen both are in the mid-20s. It is key in this maturation process that you're aligned with your coach, which they are not, which they were with Ime, which at one point they were with Brad Stevens. That's not the case with Joe. That's part of it being an unfortunate situation. Again, though, to Keenan's point, I don't think Jalen and Jason are as mentally tough as I'm going to compare, like, to Jokic at 25, to Steph, Clay, Draymond. LeBron, all those guys, I think even, and we saw LeBron come up short at that age in the playoffs, but we saw it in Game 3. They were all ready just to quit, and I think that is whack. Yeah, this coach isn't the greatest and he isn't the smartest, but they are in the conference finals at the same time. They were the 2 seed at the same time, so Joe's doing enough right.
Yeah.
Because we've seen teams with a lot of talent completely crater. It's not like they were a 5 seed, so I think Joe's completely like if they fucking won the ring this year, I would be shocked. I don't think Missoula's equipped for that, and I think if he happened to keep this job and they get whoever on their staff, I think 3 years from now, Missoula might be like Spoelstra. I mean, shit, Spoelstra wasn't great starting off. You know what I mean? He grew into what he was, but that's something time will tell. And Tatum will likely be here for the long haul. I would assume Tatum will definitely be here another 3 seasons at least. Jalen, that's up in the air. But I think Tatum's a lot like Pierce. I think Pierce is more of a dog, but I think once Tatum gets into his late 20s, we'll see more of him be able to truly take over a game, not just in the scoring realm, and truly have a feel of, okay, now I do gotta get to the rim 3 straight possessions here, that type of thing. And I think that's something that would have came quicker, if Ime's still there. So, yeah, I think it's twofold. I think what you're saying, Keenan, is not wrong at all, but I think coaching is a big part of, the mental part of the game when it comes to star players. So, yeah, you're not wrong, but I think the coaching is a very important part of that as well.
Okay. And so now I need to talk about the Heat for a few minutes. I'm loving the fact that, speaking of good coaching, if we want to, Eric Spoelstra is getting everything out of people like Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin, Cody Zeller's coming in and playing okay minutes, obviously. You got Jimmy Butler as Jimmy Butler. Bam has been playing aggressive, which is what I've been loving to see. When Bam is aggressive, it's like when Jamal Murray on the Nuggets is rolling. Like, the Heat become very, very tough to beat because you know what you're getting out of Jimmy. It's just, are we hitting threes, and is Bam going to be aggressive? Those are the two things you're like, okay, now they're really rolling. You guys are talking about, obviously, they're still in the hunt, and they still have a chance to win a championship. Clearly, they win the series. They are 4 games away from it against a Nuggets team that is very well equipped to go win it all. I've been thinking about this for a while. I need the Heat in the offseason to get Fred VanVleet. He fits the team as perfect as possible, even with the fact that he is undrafted. Like, everything about Fred VanVleet fits the roster. If you need, I know money-wise, I know I've talked about this, I believe, but I know money-wise it might not work. If you had to do a sign and trade with Tyler Hero and you kept the same roster and you brought Fred VanVleet in, depending on what Kyle Lowry is doing, you might be able to move off of that too, even though I like him, but he might be just a little old, and his money is like $27 million. But I like there's an ability to make this a nice future, and I understand that these are undrafted pieces, but there are pieces who know exactly who they are. They're not going to play outside themselves. They know their role. You add another piece there, as I've been saying, and as Kyle's been saying the same thing for the last 4 years, and they've still found their way in 3 conference finals and possibly 2 NBA finals with a possible chance of winning one. That next star makes them perennial, like, best team in the East contenders. So that I'm just excited for the future because their team right now is very bright, but also I think there's the ability to make them better for the next, 3 or 4 years while Jimmy's still operating at peak level, with Bam being young.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued by the Miami Heat in their offseason. I said after they lost to the Hawks in the play-in game, how it would be a weird offseason for them had they lost totally in the play-ins because of the lack of flexibility they have. Hero's not a great defender, but he is good enough. You know what I mean? So I would have a hard time believing they would trade Hero for VanVleet. Granted, I would love VanVleet on that team as well because of his scoring ability. VanVleet is one of my favorite players to watch. He's just got such a nice game, you know what I mean? Like, he's got handle, he just knows how to get open and get his own shot. especially being undersized and not being the most athletic. So I
like
watching him play.
He fits everything. A champion, he just fits everything Heat culture has. He just, I just want Fred VanVleet. That's just what I
And then Lowry, I know you said getting rid of Lowry, but he's weirdly been a big part of where you guys are now. Like, he has such a great feel for the game.
He's been wildly good.
No, he's been amazing. But that's why I'm like, is it the last run for him? Like, is this like his swan song kind of run before? Because he's 37. Like, but he has been. We're not here without Lowry. There's no way.
Which, by the way,
that good
back to the Celtics. Back to the Celtics, not to get on them, but, we talk about Jalen and Jason's feel for the game. If they had a Lowry, that alone, if you have a coach on the floor, like a Lowry, like a Chris Paul, that alone negates a lot of the shit we're seeing with Boston. But Miami, no. I think, we talked about AD playing his way out of a trade. I think Bam's done that as well. I thought Bam would be someone that,
Yep.
Maybe
Bam
he
would have been somebody that moved off of. Yep.
Exactly. Like, maybe he's someone you want to keep in Miami, but it's like you're not giving up Jimmy, and no one else besides Hero has trade value, and you value shooting. So it would either be Hero or Bam in that case, and Bam has more value. And I believe he's there to stay now, probably for the long term. I'm loving what I see out of Bam.
Because he's finally starting to progress as an offensive piece, along with the fact like he's always been. Yes, and that's part of the progression for him was being aggressive and like not just allowing yourself to kind of hide behind Tyler Hero or Jimmy. Like, if you have it rolling and you have the matchup, you can be the best player on the floor for a night, because defensively you're going to probably be the best defender on the floor 95% of nights because you are very good. Offensively, you have the ability to be like once every like 7 or 8 games like the best player on the floor, especially in the regular season. Obviously, playoff, we know Jimmy's time, but yes.
I like that they're using him in the screen and roll more, using his athleticism and not just letting him work from the high post.
He can pass, too.
His passing has been what's blown my mind.
He can pass, too.
He's got some Draymond to him,
He's
for
a
sure.
skilled big. He's nice. I
like that spin move dunk he had on Jalen the other night.
It's interesting. Yeah.
You're good.
It's interesting to me, this whole... We've seen, especially with the teams that are probably going to go to the finals, we already have one. It's with Jokic, the skilled big that stretches the floor in a way that makes that team low-key, if I think about it, a better shooting team than last year's Warriors, because all 5 of those dudes on the court can hit threes. All 5 of them can hit threes. Kevon Looney is not shooting threes. You know what I mean?
In college, he had some game in college. I'm surprised that his game changed so much. Like, Kyle sent me a clip of him like looking like a young KD in college. I was like, wait, where did this go? KD. Like, why does he even? He doesn't even look for a 15-footer at this point. When before it was off the bounce.
I guess it's because of his hip injury. Street say it's because of the hip injury. Surgery.
But anyways, go on.
Yeah, but. It's this whole, like, Bam plays such a huge role, just like AD might, in terms of if he's got his game going offensively and with his defensive presence, it automatically makes your team so much better than any other team that you're playing against. And sadly, I think that's what the Celtics are missing out the most, because Rob's playing 25 minutes. And Rob needs to be playing more minutes than that. And I think every team that wants to win now needs a skilled, versatile big. We've seen it with our MVPs. Our MVPs recently have been Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis, which I would call a skilled big, or not a center, but he's a skilled big, which is different than the Steph and Curry era. It's very different than that.
And even then, it's kind of the same, because if you want, there were just a smaller version. Draymond is like their skilled big. He can pass. He in prime Draymond, he could make big shots when he can still make a big shot or two, but like he wasn't he would look for a shot in like 15, 16. He shot 40% from 3 that year. But even to your point, like the last champions, they've had that versatile big who can do a little bit of everything, but these bigs can shoot better minus Giannis. Go on.
Yeah. I just think that right now in today's game, and like you said, even then, that might be the most important piece in winning a championship and developing
one of them,
a team. If you like, Jokic is special. Jokic is special in which he's unreal. But if you could develop that Bam and Jimmy thing somewhere or anywhere that just like you get a big that's versatile,
Nikola Jovic.
Can guard your best players sometimes and own the paint.
Yeah.
But could also score, and then you have another guard that can really score or is scoring dominant. I think that's the call for what the future is, and I'm really excited about the skilled big /
It's kind of weird because it's like almost like a 360 of how you had to win before. You had to have a big, you had to have a guard, but also like this big, just like a different version of a big. And as I've said, I said it like a while ago that I think that Bam could be about 85% of like peak Bam could be like 85%ish of peak Anthony Davis. As well, I was saying that before just because I feel he can do a little bit of everything. Obviously, he doesn't have the touch AD does. He doesn't have the scoring prowess AD does. He just doesn't have it, and that's fine. Yeah. And he doesn't have as much of the ranginess just because he doesn't have as much length as Anthony Davis does. Like Anthony Davis really has like generational defender ability where Bam has like all NBA first team level defense. Or there's just a little bit of a difference between that, but yeah,
Bam reminds me a little more of
Draymond.
Saying. Bam reminds me a little more of Draymond.
I could see that
how
too.
He runs the high post with a little more ability.
I could see that too.
More pick and roll ability. It's weird because I think
better
people
touch.
Used to compare him. Yeah, I think people used to compare him to Dwight Howard back in the day too. You know.
I think it was just because he caught a lot of lobs at Kentucky. I really do. Yeah.
And
I was pumped when they got him at 10. I'm glad they're featuring again him more at the as a lob threat because I think that fits his game more than dumping it to him, let him do one or two dribbles into the paint because he weirdly doesn't use his body. Like he's got a big frame. He has a big frame, but he doesn't like use it and like try to get to the line with it. Which maybe that'll come in years. He's still young. He's still mid-20s too. So, but yeah, it's interesting with him because I have been to games where he's playing and it's just like he doesn't want to shoot, even if he's 2 feet from the rim. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to go up and dunk it. So seeing him in the pick and roll spot, I think is very beneficial. And providing that the Heat go to the finals, that's like number one on my list is the matchup between Bam and Jokic. I cannot wait to see it. And let's just say, I don't want to get way too far ahead here, but Cam kind of alluded to it. Like we saw, it's very much like the NFL. It's a copycat league. And we saw once the Warriors won, the league completely flipped. Like you need shooters at every position, blah, blah, blah. And like Cam said, I think we're going to see a lot of people try to build from the center position if they win, and it's not going to be replicable. Jokic is a one of one. And Keenan, you're completely right, though. They got something with Jovic. They got a steal with Jovic in the Miami Heat. He's only 19, maybe 20 now. He's eventually going to be a problem. So they already solved some of their talent issues, especially if they keep Bam and Jimmy and even Hero 3 years from now. He should be, a quality player by then. Who knows? Maybe he gets minutes next year too. But it's not going to be easy to replicate Jokic's game across the league, and I think that's what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of these Euro centers, which this happened once upon a time in the early 2000s, where they would just, go high because of Dirk and such, and a lot of them were busts. And the Euro scouting's much better now. But the good ones, you had Dirk, you had Pau, you had Marc Gasol, like the bigs that had legitimate like guardish like skills when it's talking about like the passing ability, the shooting touch. Obviously they didn't have like the full ball handling skills, but as a big they had very solid ball handling skills as well. And with Jokic it's crazy because like he's not fast, but he moves on the break. Like it's kind of funny watching him just like go up the court because he's like it's Kyle Anderson too. Like there's just slow motion, but they're actually like good and doing well when they're leading the break. It's like, okay. And I mean, Kyle Anderson's obviously a wing compared to Jokic, who's a true center. But yeah. Mm-hmm. And then as you, Kyle, said, I just want to fully state it here. As Kyle said, Jokic is pretty much cementing himself as the best player in the league. I mean, obviously you could have a little bit of argument, like if someone's like, hey, Steph, or hey, Giannis, cool. Like you could have those conversations. The conversation, again, is dead between the best center in the league. Like Embiid's two, that's dead. Like I don't want to hear the conversation as of right now. We might be able to reopen it or later on if Embiid takes that little bit of a next step, doesn't fade away in bigger spots, and actually can really dominate the game, doesn't fade away from the basket too much. 7. Yeah, absolutely. Like if that doesn't happen, that can't happen. Like Jokic is a smaller body than Embiid. Embiid's a massive just guy. He's like Kyle and I saw him live walking by us in the tunnel. He's just a massive guy. Yeah. There's no reason why it can't be post, 2-dribble fadeaway or 2-dribble drop step to a power layup or dunk often. I just don't get why he settles for threes too much. Like Jokic will be standing at the 3-point line wide open and not shoot it unless it's in rhythm or unless he has to go with his Dirk one-legged fadeaway at the end of the shot clock.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I don't want to hear the best big man in the league is Jokic. The best player in the league is Jokic. That one can be more of a debate, but I'm not. There's no
today
question.
It's him.
I was gonna say you can't question anybody who says it anymore, as you could have a couple of years back. He's finally been like, you know what, this is mine. I'm just gonna take it and run it, set it next to my 2 MVP trophies.
I don't want to harken back to our Celtics debate over the coaching versus what's in you as a player, but bringing up Embiid and his 2 second-half points in that Game 7, I think it's interesting because here's someone in Embiid who has gone through now Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler. He's gone through now James Harden, who apparently will be back. Who knows? And he's been through also Brett Brown and now Doc. And Doc was brought there. I know Doc gets a lot of flack, but I don't think he should be blamed for what happened to Philly in the playoffs. And Doc's someone who's very much...
He shouldn't have got fired, dude.
Right.
Coach firing, but
Again, that's in it. As I was talking about with the players, before you go deep into it, that's just what I'm talking about. Like he has to have some accountability. He's been in the league long enough to where he's been in the league 7 years now. It's about that time.
And here's where he's at a different point. Here's where he's at a different point than Tatum. And again, I still think Tatum and Brown deserve much blame for this series in the playoffs. But the difference with Embiid is we've heard throughout his career that it was Simmons' fault. It was this player's fault. It was this coach's fault. It was this front office's fault, blah, 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 blah. And last year, cried about not getting the fucking MVP, about Jokic getting the MVP. This year he gets it, and it's well-deserved. And then he just flat out doesn't show up in the playoffs. I mentioned Keenan last podcast we were together about how I knew they were going to lose Game 7 because they missed a shot in Game 6 when they were down 5 in a winnable game still, and he just shrunk his shoulders. So with him, he either is going to get it later in his career or he's never going to get it because Doc's someone who is going to keep it 1,000 with you. That's someone who coached KG, Paul, Blake Griffin, Chris Paul. He's someone who's going to talk to his players and let them know. And if he can't get through to Embiid, what is going to happen there? Because it feels like Philly has enabled him as an organization and been like, okay, yeah, Doc's a problem. And to Kamden's point about him not deserving to get fired, it sounded like, and who knows if any of this is true, but it sounded like Embiid wanted Doc back. Harden did not want Doc back, and they fired Doc. And Philly was going to bring Doc back by the sounds of it. And Harden didn't want him back. So it sounds like maybe Harden's going to come back. Doc obviously is not. Who knows who they're going to get as a coach. But, man, I think Harden is detrimental to Joel Embiid because I think Embiid's a phenomenal talent. I love watching him play.
Harden's is detrimental to winning.
Exactly my point. Exactly my point. And it's going to be I don't think any of the three of us would be surprised though if Embiid acts out from Philly here in a year or two. So that would be very interesting to see where he would go and what that market would look like and what next season is going to look like after such an embarrassing ending for Embiid.
Put him in a C's jersey.
Right? I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it. It might add to our problems as far as being soft, but I do love Embiid's game. I can't lie.
Maybe the talent would be so good that being soft wouldn't matter because you'd have Tatum who's more reserved You'd have to probably, you wouldn't be able to have Jaylen Brown because of the new
Nope.
CBA, but so you'd have Jason Tatum and Embiid, who are both like reserved guys who can be on the softer side. Less Tatum, obviously, he's just more reserved than Embiid, who can be soft. So it'd be really interesting. You'd need to get like Chris Paul. I mean, obviously not at that point, but like you would need to get a Chris Paul level like type point guard who is older, who will look at them both and say, "You are bums. You need to work better." Like Chris Paul is not afraid to say that, or a coach like Steve Kerr, like Greg Popovich, who will look at you and just say, "Hey,
Bring Doc back.
no, look, whatever this is that you guys are doing, no, fix it." So, but yeah, that'd be fun to see. Definitely.
It would be.
It's getting late here. I've got questions that I want to ask y'all for next time because we got plenty, and we'll definitely be meeting before the finals because I think game 1's next Thursday.
Yeah.
So
I need to talk about Kevin Durant at some point and how he ended his season and things going forward with my guy Kevin.
It'll be interesting. Yeah.
So let me ask y'all. Melo retired on Tuesday. He is one of the pivotal players of the last era, from the 2000s into the 2010s.
For sure.
He's equally as respected as he is disrespected. I opened with saying he's one of my favorite players. So, I might have a higher vision of him. Like, I truly believe he could have been a number one on a championship team had you surrounded him with the right team. Others might say, hey, we saw his whole prime. He was never a championship player. I don't believe that. I believe if you surround him with the right team, similar to Dirk Nowitzki, you can get a ring there. That being said, him being in all three of our lives for 19 seasons, right? Much of all of your lifetimes, basically, and mine, most of my lifetime. Give me, off the top of your guy's head, what's your favorite Carmelo Anthony moment? Whether it's a play, whatever.
I've got a couple, but Cam, you go first because I can go with a different one if you have mine.
Yep. Thinking of his game where he broke 60. I think, what did he have, 63, I think? Hitting those big shots. I just remember those 2 threes that he hit right at the end of that game. Just huge shots. So I think Knicks him. Big point game. 60. What did he have, 63? Was that how much he had?
It was 60-something.
Do you know what game I'm talking about?
Against the Bobcats, he had at the Garden, it was 60-something points. Might have been just 60.
And he hit 2 huge threes right at the end.
That one was against the Bulls.
No, that was against the. Oh, he had 62 against the.
Oh yes,
you might be
he had
lumping those
62,
together.
and then that's one of my favorite ones. He hit the.
Okay.
He hit the game tying from the same spot. He hit the game tying 3 to go to overtime. I believe that was over Joakim Noah, and then he hit the game winning 3 over Luol Deng in the same spot. And that's one of my favorite Melo moments. That game was one of my favorite Melo games because in the beginning of it, he let the game come to him. He was looking to facilitate early on. He had 3 or 4 assists in the first quarter. So that I was okay, he actually can pass more than people know. And then he wasn't holding the ball. His decisions weren't 5 jab steps and then get into it. It was I'm getting the ball. I know what moves I want to get to. I'm getting to my spots. And it was one of the best games I've seen Melo ever play. So that's one of my favorite moments. The other one is I can't remember over what Utah Jazz player, Kyle, you'll remember
Millsap.
who, but his punch
Millsap.
Paul Millsap, I think it was 08. Oh man. oh buddy. He took flight and it was literally the highest I've ever seen Melo jump in my entire life because obviously he's not known for his bounce, but young Melo could get up, and he took flight on Paul Millsap.
That's one of my favorite Nuggets Melo moments. That's one of the plays I was going to mention, not just because of the dunk, but because I think it's Millsap who threw the original pass. It's one of the worst passes I've ever seen. Even if Melo wasn't the nearest defender. If Melo wasn't the nearest defender, I think even if someone was in the middle of the floor, they could have stole that ball because he just threw it up, and then Melo was all right, pick 6, and then yammed it back on Millsap. He got what he deserved there. So That's probably my favorite Nuggets Melo play, actually. And he had a nice pass against the Blazers, I think, once where it was like a left-handed like spin pass. He kind of thread the needle.
Yeah. No, that was such a. I'm watching it right now. It was such a bad pass. This is gonna go into the first row.
Yeah, right.
And then Melo, I was gonna say Melo's just that was 09 tip off, and it was so bad.
Terrible pass.
What was he passing to? He was passing to the coach. Just okay. I don't want to be here anyways. Paul Millsap deserved every bit of punch he got there, but yeah. And then the last thing about Melo that I wanted to mention was I liked the end of his career. I liked how he became. Even though it was like that weird tough time when he was in like Portland, and then like he couldn't find his way onto a roster and actually like get minutes, which was weird because obviously we knew Melo was an NBA basketball player at that kind of level. And then when he found himself in a legitimate bench role, and I found himself as that spot-up shooter who can get hot and make some plays here, I like that version of Melo as well. It really kind of it left you with a good taste of Melo in your mouth rather than just like remembering like him trying to fight for a position on a court. It was nice to see him finally get his to actually play basketball again.
Yeah.
And shout out to Olympic Melo.
Yeah. I'm also trying to remember. It might have been the 08-09 season when Melo went to the conference finals on the Nuggets, playing against Kobe, and he matched Kobe straight up. I think they both had 40 or something, and I think Kobe ended up winning that game. I think it was game 1. But I remember him just having an awesome game. And it was the season, I think it was 08-09 when he did this, and they traded he was playing with Chauncey Billups because they traded Iverson that year.
Yeah.
They traded Iverson to Detroit that year for Chauncey Billups. Yeah, I think he had 39 in that game as well. That game 1 in the Western Conference Final.
Yes. Are you looking at it now?
Kobe. No, I'm trying to remember.
No, you're actually right. He had 39. He went 14 to 20. Yeah, he had 39, 6 and 4.
I remember seeing that game. Yep.
Went 14
and I think
to 20.
Kobe had 42.
Kobe had
40 or something.
Kobe had 46 and 4. Kobe had 46 and 4. Went 13 to 28. It was game 1, and they won 105, 103.
Keenan's kind of froze up.
Yep, it really is. I remember that one being awesome. I was just gonna say that. I was like, something froze up, but I can't see you, and Keenan's gone. So
Keenan's like Draymond at that that press conference for me now. He's just stuck in one spot.
Yep. Oh man, look at him. He is gone.
All right, let's give him a minute here.
Oh man, went down.
Hi.
There we go.
There he is.
No, okay, so we
He's
can
back.
end my internet.
We thought you were actually frozen in time. First of all, sorry for the technical difficulties. Welcome back, Keenan. Welcome back from the dead. To respond to both of you, Keenan, you mentioned the end of Melo's career. It was great to see him in a Blazers uniform, and in a different role, and he handled that role well. It was disappointing only because I believe he could have not only played this season, but played at a quality level, like been a spot-up shooter somewhere, been an eighth man somewhere. We even saw him play defense on Portland. I think we see it with players like Westbrook. Melo, people were saying how Melo wasn't willing to take a role, and he clearly did, and then he wasn't able to go out on his terms this past year, it seems like. And, as a Melo fan, that kind of hurt to see. And I just don't really understand it because even his teammates will tell you he's like the utmost professional. Like, they don't understand the rap he gets, da-da-da-da-da. Go to Cam to talk about that 09 Lakers series. Go watch the highlights of that because it is a weirdly physical series. Like, all the highlights of that, you'll see, like, Melo, Kmart, Kobe, Gasol, Lamar Odom. It's all just them, like, banging down low, like fighting for rebounds, second chance shots, like everything's 15 feet and in. And that's, years after the 80s and 90s. Yeah, it's years after the 80s and 90s where you picture that being pure mid-range, but they're playing literally from like the top of the key in, and it's just like physical. It's pretty intriguing highlights to see, especially because it's not that long ago. I mean, 14 years ago, it is long ago, but it's not at the same time. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, well, let me just say, I'll say my favorite moments of Melo's career. A lot of them come off the court. Y'all might have seen my story yesterday. There's that iconic photo of him looking at Rihanna. Rihanna's the baddest woman on the planet. All of us would look at Rihanna like that. But it's an iconic, hilarious photo of Melo. There's that video of, I believe, Jimmy Butler and Kyrie, right, singing 1,000 Miles on the Team USA bus. Isn't that who it is? It's definitely Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
And they panned to Melo, and he's like, he gave them the same look. So. Yeah, I think it was Jimmy and Kyrie. Melo's giving them the same look, Keenan, that I give you when you're singing your fucking bullshit ass songs. Like when no one wants to hear it and you'll be singing some like 2000s pop song. Gave them the same exact look. Like I identified so much with that. He's got, I think there's an interview where like someone dumps water on him. He's like, motherfucker shit. Like why is that your reaction, Melo? Like he just got so many funny moments off the court. My favorite Melo moment, though, off the court, it's my Twitter header. It's some Knicks fan, which, by the way, Knicks Melo is probably my favorite era of Melo, second being the Nuggets. But some Knicks fan talking about, like, he's just talking shit to Melo, being like, I don't know why I root for you, da-da-da-da. And Melo replies, and this is the greatest Twitter response of all time, arguably. He said, nobody asked your glazed donut face ass to root for me anyway. You can't get much more disrespectful than calling someone glazed donut face ass, and I want to incorporate that in my everyday life. Because, like, where does that even come from? How do you even have a glazed donut face ass? Like, you got to be an ugly motherfucker to look like a glazed donut face ass, or you just got to have a crazy face in general. So that's my all-time favorite Carmelo moment. And I want to say, how I'll remember Carmelo, though, he's weirdly become an underrated offensive player. I don't think we've seen many players with his size and speed at the small forward/power forward position. He can get his jumper off on anybody. I think he's got one of the all-time prettiest jump shots I've ever seen, if not number one. His mid-range game is up there with, some of the greats, whether it's Kobe, Michael, Durant, Dirk. Maybe not his knockdown, but you could count on it. And I always think, like, if you compare him to someone like Paul Pierce, I think he's a better player than Paul Pierce all around. But I think Paul Pierce is more of a winning player, which is weird. But I also think if you put Melo on those Celtics teams, Melo probably wins rings in Pierce's spot. But that's a debate for another day. But overall, I think Melo is a weirdly underrated player. Some might even call him overrated. But he was weirdly a superstar in our era, or in that era, even though he didn't have the Kobe, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James accolades. But for some reason, he carried himself, and we held him to a superstar regard, much like, he didn't even have the accomplishments of a Chris Paul. So I think that does speak to Melo's talent to some degree. Kind of, right?
Like, if you want to compare it to today, it's kind of Dame. Dame doesn't have the Steph Curry, obviously Bron, obviously like Giannis, Jokic accolades, but he carries himself like a superstar, one of the greatest scorers of our generation. So it's kind of like Dame. I mean, obviously different player, but like same kind
Each
of
been to one conference
way he
finals.
carries himself.
Absolutely, I like that comp.
Facts. No, congrats on a career, Melo, for sure. Y'all good though?
Yeah, we're great. I'm great. I know. I was gonna say, Kamden needs to go Steph Curry night, so he can teach the kids tomorrow. Teach him about some Leon Bridges and some. He might teach him. He might go Stevie Wonder. I don't know what he's teaching him this month.
We'll see what tomorrow is.
Wait, on that topic, and since we talked about music, before we go, each of you give me one song that's in your rotation right now.
What's in my rotation musically?
Just one song. One song that's been in your rotation the last couple weeks, month.
So I'm going to shout out this song, "To Summer" from Cole, Audio Hug. just came out off Summer Walker's EP. Told you I was listening to that. I was gonna say really
EP.
that all my life with J. Cole, and then America has a problem. I know you said one, but there's three. That's Beyonce and Kendrick, by the way.
Yeah. I'll go with, I was listening to Post's song, Post Malone, Morning.
Yeah.
I like that song. Yeah. It's a good song.
Yeah.
One that's been in rotation for me, Striker
go.
Music, T Grizzly and Skrilla Baby. I think it's kind of like a collab album between the two, but that's probably been in rotation for me the most. And I know I myself said one. I'm gonna give you two right here. I'm surprisingly love this verse. You won't be able to guess this. So it's MVP, it's A Boogie and G-Eazy, and I'm shocked to say this. G-Eazy kind of fucking rips it. Like, I actually really love his verse. It's almost guaranteed to be on either 2K or Madden, if not both. It's like made for like, sounds like it's made for either warm-ups or video games or both. But G-Eazy kind of fucking rips it. It's a sentence I never thought I would say, but he really does. Y'all might have to give it a listen. But listen, this was the Warner Brothas
I'll have to
podcast.
check that one out.
For sure. This was the Warner Brothas podcast. We will be back next week previewing the NBA Finals with much more NBA conversation. I know I got some Wemby questions for y'all, among other things. By the way, Celtics, 8-point favorite tomorrow, minus 300 money line. Surprised it's that high. That's kind of Heat disrespect. That's giving the Celtics a little bit too much respect, I think. But hey, either way, that's a cash pick. We will be back next week once again. A lot of good music dropping this week. Blah, 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 blah. We'll be back to talk about it all next week. Keenan, Cam, thank you very much. Like, follow, subscribe. Warner Brothas Podcast. We are out of here. Have a good night, fellas.